And I'm Julie Stren. I'm the president and CEO of ODC. We're a large service provider organization in central, north central, little northeastern Wisconsin. So we're really excited to have you join us today and learn a little bit more on this journey that I think we're all on of how technology can continue to enhance all of our lives on a day-to-day basis. So is the agenda first? I feel like I'm not on the right. I feel like the slides got. Okay, just a second. I have to get our slides to the beginning. Somehow they got moved ahead. Just a second. Or not. Hmm. I just don't think it's going to work. It's whatever happened before we started, it like jammed on a slide. Anyone technology can help me. I had it set up, but then technology, did that, it's not moving it on.
I hate these presenters when they do that. I'm gonna report this.
And it wouldn't matter that we missed the first two slides, but it's not letting me move to any additional slides. Oh, there we go. No. So it got stuck on this slide. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Can it back up? Perfect. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Okay, there we go. They've got about 6 different things going on this computer. So, okay. So as you saw, we just introduced ourselves and okay, really? Arrows here. Oh, it just is delayed. Yep, that's what I use. Oh, down and up. Got it. Okay. Whew, it's not me. Well, it might be me, but it's also. It's okay. I didn't know what you did. They're knotted. Oh, perfect. Back, 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 back. Perfect. Okay. Thanks. And just the down and up arrows. Okay. Perfect. So, wow, we're to our agenda slide. This is awesome. We're moving right along. So we want to share a little bit about Tech First and what's happening in Wisconsin around technology first. The coalition that has come together and kind of what it's doing in the state of Wisconsin, and maybe energize some of you to get more involved in some of the work that's happening. We're going to talk about how you can meet some of your goals with technology, some resources. Stacy's going to share her amazing firsthand experience. So first of all, we want to, I've given up. Go ahead. You can. First of all, we're going to do a small group activity. And in that small group activity, so on your table, there's some large Post-it notes. So you either have like a little table tent, if that's easier for you, or there's a sticky large Post-it note. And what I want to do for the next few minutes, and then maybe we'll figure out how to get our technology to work. I want you to jot down as a table a couple different things. One, why is technology important? Like, why is it important to you? How is it important to you? And or what are some of the things that are standing in your way to be able to have more technology in your life? So whether you're a person, for all of us, right? So what does technology do to help you on your day-to-day life? And what are any barriers or challenges that you see currently in having technology be more a part of your life? So we're going to take a few minutes and we want to jot down those answers to those two questions. And there's a big post-it and then there's little post-its. So if you want to also jot down a little post-it and then throw down the big post-it, that's fine. Just wanted to make sure that lots of people can get involved. So how are you using it? And what might be some of the challenges? So just jot down any of those different items on your table. And then we're going to come together and chat a little bit about what's happening out there, right? Like, how are you using technology? Like, I couldn't live without my iPhone. If I lost it, I wouldn't know where I was going. I wouldn't know what my next meeting was. And then what are some of those challenges that come into play? Okay, what are some of the ways people are using technology? And I'll bring the mic. Who wants to give? What are some ways we're utilizing technology?
Navigation.
Oh, yeah, to navigate. How do I get from point A to point B? Great answer. How else are we using technology?
For basic survival.
For basic survival. Absolutely. I could not live without my cell phone. It is very true.
You sure you don't the right meeting ID though?
We are currently using grand care systems.
Grand care systems. So some systems that are in individuals' homes that are able to have kind of that face-to-face caregiver contact. Yep. Excellent. Anyone else want to share? How are you currently using technology? Boy, the camera guy does. It's gonna love me.
Lifelines utilizing boundaries.
Yeah.
Perfect. The Apple Watch using Lifeline.
Can use computer sending message, telephone,
Oh, these people really annoy me.
doing education learning, like have to learn. And there's a for the deaf PP fails the communicate.
So some specific deaf videos using the computer. Oh yeah.
Fails, there's that camera. It's like
And using a camera. Great. One more.
Just having 911 available at the touch of your finger.
Yeah. Just being able to have 911 available. Anything on chat?
On Zoom. Technology is becoming the way of the world in the way that my paperwork is becoming electronic. It's hard to keep up with the changes and learn how to do all the things.
Great feedback. Any challenges that people identified to kind of start us off as we're starting to think that we want to share? Perfect. We'll take a couple challenges and then we're going to jump in.
So collectively, all of us with funding.
Oh, so how do I get it paid for? How do I access? So I need something, maybe I can't afford it. What are my options?
Rural access. Northern Wisconsin has a hard time connecting to any kind of source.
Absolutely. So there's rural issues. And that isn't part of our presentation today, but I'm actually going to share when we get into some of the resources at the end, some things that are happening in Wisconsin to keep your eye out. I actually had a privilege to be on our local broadband coalition in our county, and there's some really interesting stuff happening nationwide and statewide. So thanks for bringing that up. We'll get to that in some of the resources. One last thing, what are some of the challenges? And then we're gonna share some information with you.
Different current insurance and healthcare system.
Sure. So insurance in our current healthcare system. Absolutely. Great. Oh, one more.
I like to learn how to do different things.
Absolutely. So how do I use all this technology, right? So it exists, and how can I incorporate and use that into my life? Great. Well, I'm going to pass it over to Chris. He's going to tell you a little bit about what's happening in Wisconsin.
Thanks, Julie. And can we go through the slides? Are they working?
The stupid Metropolitan Associates dispenser. Ah!
That wasn't part of the presentation. I'm not sure. So
Yeah.
as they're trying to figure this out again, so some of those problems that were mentioned, those challenges are so I was meeting actually with the ARC of Wisconsin and Inclusa about some challenges we were having to get our technology into certain settings. Inclusa was having some issues on how do you bill for it. I think that was brought up. How do you got to get it paid for? And what we discovered was we weren't the only ones that were facing these challenges. So we thought, let's see who else is out there that might have, be interested in this idea. So lo and behold, we did some reach out. We wanted to get some providers. We wanted to get family care. We wanted to get iris representation, self advocates. So all of these organizations agreed to become a part of what's called the Wisconsin Tech First Coalition. So we've actually been together for about 2 years and meet every couple of months to discuss issues. We do some education like this. We're all a part of it as well. And so we also look at policy. How can we influence policy to make sure that tech is being accessible to everybody in the state of Wisconsin? And the whole mission, can you go to the next one? I'm not even going to touch it. The purpose of it is just to make Wisconsin a tech first state where people, are presented options of using any type of technology to maximize independence and privacy in their life. So, it's really, we wanted to make sure it's focused on person-centered, be a part of that person's plan, and then just try to find the support, around the tech to make sure it enhances people's lives. So that's what we're about. And again, we meet every couple of months and try to come up with that. So if you're interested more about that, certainly let us know after the session. And I'm going to hand it back to Julie.
Okay, so we're going to share how technology could, and how we've seen technology utilized in many different lives to help enhance and support living in the community, living independently. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is some of what we've seen. Then we're going to talk about how can you get that on your care plan? Like, what are some questions? What are some things that we talk about to see, is technology a good fit? And how does that fit? So on the next slide. So when you're thinking about technology, what are some of those questions that we think about? So at ODC, when we meet with individuals and talk about they're living independently in their own home or their own apartment, maybe they're working out in the community in a job with their employer. Some of the questions that we talk with individuals about are, well, who are you? Tell me about yourself. What is important to you? What do you already have in your life, right? Like, what technology might you have already implemented into your life? What does your day look like? Where are the glitches that happen throughout your day that are supportive, right? So when I think about my morning, even here, so even at the Kalahari, my phone woke me up. Honestly, I don't even know what an alarm clock is anymore. I used to have one. Used to have one in my bedroom every morning that I went and set, and it rang. And now every night when I go to bed, I get into bed and I say, "Hey, Alexa, turn on my TV. Hey, Alexa, set timer for 60 minutes to turn off my TV. And Alexa, set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. and set my alarm for 5:45 a.m. and set my alarm for 6 a.m. And then my husband looks at me and says, "Are you kidding me? Alexa, set my alarm for 7 a.m." And then I get the dirty look because he's getting woke up 3 times before he actually needs to get up, right? Like, this is our morning. This is what it looks like. I don't touch a thing. As long as I can talk, it works. And she never fails. She has always woke me up in the morning. So it's really about, what does your life look like? What are your needs? What does your day look like? So those are the questions we ask. What are your outcomes? So my outcome in my life is I actually have to get up, showered, dressed, get in my car, drive to the office. My husband has to get up, roll out, maybe depending if he has a meeting that he has to actually be on video, put on a presentable top shirt and roll into our home office that's now been created since COVID. So different timelines, right? Like, I have a need to get up. I have a number of prep that needs to happen. He has to roll out of bed and make sure he gets a cup of coffee. Definitely a very different timelines for our morning. So it's really important when we meet with individuals to talk about, what does your day look like? Where do you need to be? What time do you need to be there? What does life look like? And then, what might you already be familiar with technology? Do you already have a phone? Do you have an iPad? Do you have an Alexa? So I'll share another personal story in our house. My father-in-law lives independently in an apartment, and he actually had a stint where he had COVID. And when he had COVID, he fell. Our first initial reaction was to completely freak out, right? Because, oh my gosh, do we need to move him to assisted living? He fell. He laid there for a number of hours. And what actually ended up happening is, just by implementing an Alexa in his home, he can actually communicate with us without having to make a single phone call. Just needed an internet connection, but he didn't have an internet connection. So we had to talk about that. What do you have already? The other problem that he struggled with is he kept calling her Alexis. And it's very interesting because Alexis does not respond. Alexa responds. So my husband and I are like, why isn't it working for him? Because he keeps calling her Alexis and her name is Alexa. So it's really funny how those little things matter, right? But being able to implement that has created the opportunity that he can continue to live independently and have full access to all of us as family by simply saying, Alexa, call Rob. Alexa, call Julie. Alexa, drop in on Megan. I mean, and that's all that is needed for him to have that immediate response. And then, what concerns do you have about technology? Well, in that particular example, a concern was, I don't know how to use this. You just shared, I don't know how to use it. And I can guarantee he still has no idea how to use it. He knows what to use to be able to access and manage what matters in his life. So I'm only giving that example and sharing a few of these questions around, as you start to think about, could technology be a part of my life, or could technology be a part of someone that I support or someone in my family's life? It all starts with the question, what does your day look like? What do you need in your life? What might be able to be implemented in your life to be able to help you remember to take your medications, to be able to get up, to remind you to get up, to remind you to take something out of the oven. All kinds of things can be implemented into your life. So I did just share, and let's see if I might have talked too much. Yeah, okay, just a second. I have to go where is the mouse? There it is. Okay. Perfect. So I am going to cover just a couple of the simple technologies, and I've talked about a few of them. So your iPhone, the accessibility features on your iPhone. Again, I don't know. I have to have my readers, or I have to make things much larger on my iPhone than I maybe Needed to 10 years ago. But all kinds of different options on your iPhones using calendar reminders that speak to you. Using map applications. So someone said, I use it. Yeah, I use it to know where I'm going. Absolutely. I don't know that I ever get in my car without asking my car to tell me where I'm going. Okay, maybe the local grocery store. I got that handled. But most of the time I am asking for some instructions. And I might be just a little personally biased because we've managed to use it a lot in our life, but I use Amazon Alexa and Amazon Show, Amazon Dot for a lot of things. We now have it set up that, again, my father-in-law is an example. We have it set up that it tells him when he needs to take his medication. If he doesn't respond to Alexa, she sends us an alert. So, again, did he take it? I don't know. Probably. It's more about forgetting for his situation. So when he says, yep, I've taken my medicine, Alexa, I get an alert. So it's amazing what Alexa will do for you. A very simple and very low tech solution. Now I'm going to pass it on to Chris, and he's going to share a few of the other tech solutions that he has seen implemented with individuals.
Thanks, Julie. And I think nowadays you can rename Alexa. I don't personally have one. So I heard yesterday that actually somebody calls their Alexa mom. So they actually say, hey, mom, and then Alexa does whatever Alexa wants. So I think you can say Alexis now. So I'm going to dive in a little bit of more areas where you might have a goal in mind where tech might be able to help you. And the first one is community. So for us, a lot of times it's transportation. So what's out there right now, for transportation, as far as, does your bus route have a local app that you can know when the bus is coming? If the bus is late, do you have that app on your phone? Very simple tech that, might be able to alert you where you're going. You can check, your schedules and your routes, and it's obviously there's no cost to that if you already have a smartphone. Some of the more sophisticated things out there, there's what's called a mobile PERS unit. There's that has GPS in it, so it's kind of like the old Lifeline buttons, but it actually has a GPS in it where people can ping you, know where you're at if you're, happen to get off track, or maybe it's somebody that gets on the wrong bus and you need to find them. We might be able to use a mobile PERS app to figure out where they're at. A lot of times those can be connected to a local caregiver. So like for Julie's situation, she has family that's involved that can help with her father-in-law, right? But a lot of people don't have that, or you don't have caregivers. We all know caregiver crisis is really bad right now. So is there devices like this with either an MPERS? We're actually, I know Boundary Care is here with the Apple Watch, and they have a GPS thing on the Apple Watch that we're actually working with them to get it into our software. So we're very close, and the hope is somebody's able to use their Apple Watch, and then we have those live caregivers that can assist with where somebody's at. If they're outside of their kind of general location where they normally would be, we can help figure out where they're at. Another device out there like that is called Angel Sense. That's been around for a while. We're actually working with them as well to be able to help on that caregiver side, because there's a lot of it out there, but if nobody's manning the technology, it doesn't do you any good. So if you're reliant on somebody else to be a Julie in her case to make sure that father-in-law is okay, and you don't have that person, the tech, it can actually be a little dangerous. So and then there's all sorts of things that out there right now with apps that you can help with your schedule. There's actually a new company called Awake Labs that are helping with just how you are emotionally as well. So you can flip to the next one. So a big one we get all the time is medications. Like, how can I get help with medications? Julie kind of mentioned that her father-in-law, all he needs is a reminder from Alexa, and if they don't get it, they can send a signal. that's a very low cost option. You can set your phone just as similar as I do the same thing. I set my alarm. I only do two alarms a morning, and I'm almost always up before the first one. But you can set your alarm for your medication. If that's all you need is a reminder, set your alarm, right? Then you know it's 4 o'clock. My sister pretty much, she self-medicates for the most part, but she needs reminders. Well, she doesn't have staff or family during the afternoon right now, and she forgets her 4 o'clock med all the time. And so right now it's, we're looking at maybe a tech option for her, that she can remember to take it. And right now it's just my mom calling her, making sure she's taking it. But I think, we're going to look into a little bit something so she doesn't have to be harped by her mom. With these lower tech options, there's less oversight. So if it's really important that med is taken, or you need to ensure that it's intake, and you might want to move to more of the higher tech situations. We use the Dose. I think Dose is here too. It's a great medication dispenser. You can preload it. We've had very good luck with it, and you flip it out. It actually alerts you when it's time to take your meds. You flip it out and it's reset for the next one. If you need more than that, you can use, we actually monitor the dose as well. So if that person hasn't taken their meds, it'll send a signal into our staff, and then we can follow a certain protocol, to call the person to remind them, to call a family member, to call a caregiver that, hey, Julie hasn't taken her meds yet. Do you want to go check on her, make sure that the meds have been dispensed? So those are, some more complex medication devices. So there's a lot now with meds. There's some that some pharmacies will actually fill the dose. They'll fill certain pill boxes or pill dispensers that are pretty sophisticated. So there's a lot more coming with this. One more that I'll mention just on the same note, and I wish they were in Wisconsin, but hopefully it's coming. But there's a company called Station MD that is actually attached to doctors. So I'm actually guardian for somebody who has a really hard time going into the emergency room. Well, if she could do a virtual visit, if she gets a cut, for example, and be able to talk to a doctor face to face, like telemedicine, but it would save her a lot of stress to have to go to the doctor's office every time. So that hopefully is coming to Wisconsin. It's not here yet, but they're really great because their whole specialty is working for people with disabilities. They're not just general physicians. Their whole niche is they work primarily with people with IDD, and can help virtually through their platform, so you don't always have to go to the doctor. So more of that's coming, but I thought I'd throw that in with the medication. But it's a really cool company out of New York. You can go to the next one. And then big one, I don't know if anybody's mentioned staffing as a challenge. It's what, kind of what we do on a day to day. Somebody I think mentioned Lifeline. Certainly can happen. There's a lot of devices that can send alerts. I think through COVID, we all use some type of technology that we might have not experienced before. So a lot of agencies move to maybe a Zoom platform for activities. So there's some simple tech that's out there that you can have that face-to-face connection with your family, with your caregivers, that everybody has. I mean, if you have an iPhone, you can do FaceTime with people. So those are some simple tech things. And then there's what we do, which is called remote supports. I think somebody mentioned Grand Care, similar probably type of system. We're looking at some Grand Care stuff too, but this is where we actually have staff attached to the other side of the tech. So it can vary from somebody has sensors throughout their house. We have to follow a certain protocol based on their sensors. Or if somebody just needs check-ins, needs those reminders that, like Julie's dad, we can build that into people's plans too. So we have a guy who has a housemate where his housemate sometimes takes his lunch in the middle of the night. And so we call him every single day and say, hey, Bill, that's not his name, but say, hey, Bill, you got your lunch made for today. He says, yep. And I said, well, can you open up your lunchbox? I said, yep. And I said, is there a lunch in there? And sometimes he says yes, and sometimes he says no. But he was going to work every like a couple times a week without a lunch. And so we redirect him to make sure he makes his lunch. We notify the agency that, you know, his roommate has taken his lunch again, but simple stuff like that. But we're attached to, you know, you're attached to that caregiver all the time. And then what we also do is we work with providers and families to say, if you actually need a physical assistance, who do we contact, right? So remote technology can't solve all the problems, but if somebody really needs that physical staff, who do we contact? And we try to work with providers and teams to figure that out. So we're never going to replace the live staff, but we've done this for 2 decades, and we have supported a lot of folks with some pretty challenging needs. We have a guy who actually needs repositioned every 2 hours, and before he was on our supports, he would go to the hospital for bed sores about once a year, and really significant bed sores. And we realized, we said, well, this is a lot. You know, we were kind of nervous about supporting him. About 9 months after we supported this gentleman, a nurse came in to look over his skin, said, I've never seen this guy's skin look so good. And what the agency realized had happened is that they were getting reports that these checks were being made. We were ensuring that the staff was going to go, because we don't want to be policing of the staff, but we were making sure that guy got the repositioning, and he ended up getting it day in and day out. So a guy that was going to the hospital once a year, he was on our services for 6 years, never went to the hospital for bed sores. So it's not always, you know, we support people with some pretty challenging needs when it all works out really well. You can go ahead to the next one. So some things to think about when you use tech, safeguards, what's in place. So we're not going to get too much into social media, but I know, you know, as you do, you have to make sure, you know, are there stalkers out there, right? I mean, I don't know if anybody's had their Facebook account hacked before. I have once. It's not fun, right? So there's some people out there that are trying to do bad things, right? And so can they get through with the technology? Can they hack your accounts? Yep, they certainly can. So you need to make sure you know what you're doing with your passwords. You know, are there apps that require a credit card? So I honestly have no idea, but does the Alexa make you have a credit card? I don't know if it does anymore. Maybe, yes. Right. So I think one of the famous stories when Alexa first came out, I think Domino's came to somebody's house, right? Because a commercial came on the on the TV, right? So you have to be careful. Do you have a credit card to attach it? Is that a safe thing? So think about that stuff. Do you have a credit card? You know, if that is the case, are you automatically opening up stuff to order a bunch of items on your credit card on your Amazon account? Last week, I had a weird charge on my bank account. Guess where it was from? It was from Amazon. So I asked my wife if she ordered something from Amazon. She thought I was getting crappy with her because she was shopping with not telling me what she was buying. When in reality, she didn't order anything. So there was, you know, over $100 charge. Bought it with the bank, and that's never fun. So you have to be really careful with that. With you got a credit card attached to anything. Somebody mentioned like you have to know it all. So how do you know if the devices are charged? How do you know all that tech? So when you're out there doing it on your own, that's when you're doing some of the simple tech, you're much more likely to have to know a lot of that stuff. So, you know, are your batteries charged up? Do you get an alert if it's going low? Is there a backup plan? So if the internet goes out, are you going to get an alert? So as we do things, we make sure all that stuff is backed up, but some of the other lower tech stuff you might not know. So just know what your backup is if your device dies, right? So I mean, we've all probably had our cell phones going low on battery. Same thing's going to happen with most of this technology. So those are just some things to think about as safeguards. But certainly be careful on social media. I know we're not going to talk about it too much, but that can be a dangerous thing if you don't know what you're doing. So make sure you have a little oversight if you're getting on Facebook and whatever the new stuff is, TikTok, I don't even know. But whatever the new apps are, be careful. And I think I'm gonna turn over to Marcy now.
Thank you. And do you want to switch? Thank you. So I would absolutely agree. And I think one of the great things about technology is it's becoming more common, right? So we used to talk about technology and people thought of like big devices or really expensive stuff, right? And now it can be just little, right? Our iPhones that really can control our days and tell us where to go, when to go, how to get there. We use technology every day. So it's a lot less scary, I think, to talk about technology, but it still can be a change, right? So getting comfortable, being open, being curious, theme of the conference, right? We have to be curious about how can we become more independent and utilize technology, hearing examples from other people, learning from other people, the good and the bad, right? And taking those examples. So we highly encourage you, whether it's through IRIS or your long-term care with family care, talking with the care teams that you're working with. Technology is absolutely something that teams and family care partnership and IRIS can support. So we want you to encourage you to have those conversations. It can be, hey, have you heard about this? And the team may say no, because technology is changing every single day. It amazes me. Just thinking from 2020 to where we are now, the different applications, the different devices to support people to be more independent. So I would just, again, highly encourage you to outreach to the teams, ask, like what they know about it, talk about the safeguards. Teams are going to probably talk with you about that anyways. How to keep yourself safe. Maybe you don't share your location on that application, and different things of that sort. But the teams are absolutely there to support and explore what technology could mean and how it could better support you to be more independent. If you want to switch over to the next one. And one more. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the different places that you can go and access technology. ADRCs, who's familiar with them? Yeah, right? Amazing spot to go. Quite often they're known for the place so you go and get eligible for family care partnership and IRIS, right? But a lot of other resources are there to support people. So loan closets, anyone familiar with them? Right, absolutely. Fantastic resource in every community that can be accessed freely. So my father, for example, he needed a knee surgery, right? He didn't need a walker, didn't need crutches long-term, right? It was just post-surgery rehab. Went to the loan closet, they were able to connect him with the resource that he needed during that time. And then he was able to return it back and somebody else is able to use it. So there's tons of resources from lift chairs, communication devices, commodes, grab bars, the list goes on. So every loan closet and with each ADRC has a different supplies based on what people have turned in, but it's a fabulous resource and free. So it's always a good option to explore. The ADRC is also a great place to go just to get connected with WISTech or the independent living centers that can help you get connected to some different adaptive aids. And if I don't mind, yeah, switching slides for me, thank you. So WISTech is a great resource in Wisconsin. In 1998, the assistive technology came about and required the Assistive Technology Council. So 51% of the council members are individuals that have a disability and use technology. So there's the other individuals of the council are also supporting and guiding the state on activities and how we can better support technology, get it out in front of people and support people, again, to be more independent, to explore different things, whether it's in their home, the community, education, employment. Prior to my current role, I had the opportunity to support people seeking, obtaining, and maintaining employment, and technology was phenomenal in doing that. The number of individuals who didn't believe that they could work could because of the aid of technology was absolutely amazing. There's so many more things that people are capable of just because the support of technology. So the state has a 3-year plan, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the differences within the plans to support that. But they have a lot of different things to allow people to, actually, I'll have you switch slides, I'm sorry. So demonstrations, right? So you can go in, you can try out different things, see what works for you. Things as simple as like mouse for your computer, mouse pads, keyboards, glasses. There's so many different things that are available, but it's nice to kind of try it on before you buy, right? Like good pair of shoes, right? Like you don't want to wear the stilettos if you can have a good old pair of tennies, right? Like you can try things on, see what works best for you. And not only that, but have it customized, right? There's the customization that can happen to make it work best for you. Device loans, right? Kind of the loaners, can you take it home and try it in your own house where you're comfortable? Maybe you're not as comfortable in that office going to ODC, you're going to try some different things, right? Like, okay, this works really good here, but is it going to work in my rural community, like connected to my Wi-Fi, things of that sort, right? So having that opportunity to take things home and try it out, try it for a day, try it for a week, right? To make sure things work. Equipment reutilization, that's kind of like that loan closet we talked about. Great resource in all the communities. And then alternative financing, right? So we talked about that being one of the barriers for a lot of people. So a lot of technology can be free, it's very accessible, but there are costs to some, right? So reaching out to your care teams, and I'll have you switch slides for me too. Asking if it's something that can be built into the plan, talking to them about the benefits of it. You know, how do you see this impacting you? Where are you going to see this maybe supporting you to be a little bit more independent, whether it's going out into the community to be with your friends, connecting with family, right? Like my oldest went to school for the first time this year, right? And so she, I was nervous, right? Like mom's losing her first baby, right? I was like, oh gosh, how's this gonna go? And I'm a crier anyway. So everybody was ready for mom to cry as we were leaving. And anyways, I did really good until they played this Toy Story where he was saying goodbye to Waldo at the thing. And I was like, who does that? Right? Like it's already a sad day. Like I'm excited for her, but I'm sad, right? So of course I started crying. We leave, but I FaceTime with her probably 3-4 times a day. FaceTime has saved our, we have the best relationship. We're great friends. I support her, you know, but we have that connection. So FaceTime, she also takes medication. She sends a baby. Every morning I give her medication about an hour before she get up. And I didn't do a very good job of encouraging her to do that on her own because it was easy for me to hear my alarm, go down, give her medication, and then she'd get up and get ready. So it's like, Erin, you got to start doing this on your own. Like you're going to school. This is going to be your thing, right? Like you have to take this every single day. You can't miss it. Yeah, mom. So we too, again, set calendar reminders on her phone, just making sure she messages me saying, yep, I took it. The other thing was her blood pressure she has to monitor. So she messages me every day, like what her blood pressure is. So that way I can help support her as to kind of where things are at, but then also I also have that reassurance that she did it. So technology again can just in everyday life and practice make our lives so much easier and better. So I do want to talk a little bit about the alternative financing options. So there are obviously if somebody's a part of long-term care or children's care, it's an option to request with your team, right? It can be, but there are alternative options through WISLoan. So those are personal loans that can support home modifications, vehicle modifications, maintenance and things of that to support the technology. Go to your local bank. Quite often you get connected through the independent living center. Again, if you're connected with long-term care, ask your care team about it as an option. The other really cool thing is anybody interested in being self-employed and having their own business in here? Maybe? Stacy will talk about that, right? So telework is a fabulous resource to support people who are wanting to have their own business and whether it's assistive technology to support them with this setup so they can be successful in doing that. And I'll let you switch that slide. And then the last one that I have before I'll hand it over is really some of the resources that are available for reduced costs. So Julie was talking a little bit about internet access. So there are some options where you can get reduced internet monthly fees. Not all of them are internet companies are connected, but there's a link within the presentation that you can look and alphabetically. It lists all of the different options. You can put in your zip code to see if it's an option as well for you. But it, would reduce it by $30 a month. The other option or thing that's available is a $100 discount for a purchase of a device that you may need, whether it's a tablet, computer, something of that sort. So, but again, in those circumstances, if you're not eligible for that, it would also be something to connect with your care team on. And I'll hand it back over to Stacy.
Hello, my name is Barbara.
Hi, I'm Stacy and you're watching the Self-Determination channel. In today's episode, we're in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, where I live independently in my own apartment. Thanks to assistive technology, I'm able to live by myself. I use lots of cool technology to help me. I'd like to show you some of the technology I use to help me lead a self-determined life. The first one is pretty unique. I have a communication app on my phone that speaks out loud. That's how I'm speaking to you today. I've pre-programmed what I want to say. I can also type out things if I'm having a conversation with someone. I'm so excited to see that. When I present to large groups, I connect a Bluetooth speaker to my phone to make it louder. Many people are surprised that I'm even able to use a cell phone because my disability impacts my fine motor skills, but, fortunately, I have a pretty good double-jointed thumb which allows me to be able to use it. I can program my communication app with different commands. To use voice assistant devices like the Amazon Echo or the Google Home. Alexa, play country music. Having significant physical limitations and living by myself makes me pretty vulnerable. With a video doorbell, I can see who is at my door on my phone before I open it. It makes me feel much safer. I have a remote mounted on my wheelchair so I can let people in and I can get in and out myself. I also have a remote by my bed so I can let my morning staff in. Assistive technology has made it possible for me to live independently. For myself and many people with disabilities, it's an exciting time. I often wonder what will be invented next. People often don't realize it, but almost everyone uses some sort of assistive technology on a daily basis. Do you use any assistive technology? Share your story in the comments below. We've posted some links about assistive technology that you might like to check out. Thanks for watching the Self-Determination channel. If you liked this episode, subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and tell your family and friends about us. Clear to my parents and therapists that I would need assistive devices to help me be independent. I lucked out and I had awesome parents who began advocating for me right away. At the age of 2, I received my first power wheelchair. It was a little red Hot Wheels, and I remember going in circles at the wheelchair place the day I got it. It didn't take long for me to learn how to drive it though. It was my first means of independent mobility.
I got my first communication device when I was just 3 years old. I was in early childhood, so school therapists and my parents worked together to figure out what would work for me. I had Evolves at the Waisman Center in Madison. They still have an extensive assistive technology lab where they do all sorts of things. I haven't been there since I was very little, but I know others who have. That was just where I had my first communication device evaluation. Even before the eval therapist had me start using really simple picture boards to begin communicating my needs and wants. My first augmentative communication device was a light talker. I don't really remember much about it except that it was switch operated. It scanned rows and columns, and I'd have to hit the switch when the light got to the spot I wanted. It had all pre-programmed phrases. If I remember correctly, I used it, but it wasn't very effective because it took so long. That was just my first of many communication devices. As I got older and learned how to read and spell, they started working with me on computers. I remember in kindergarten playing games on an Apple II computer. My parents got me one I could use at home as well. I had a ginormous adapted keyboard. It was called a unicorn keyboard in case anyone remembers those. It had a keyguard, so I didn't hit multiple keys at once. I remember practicing typing numbers on a blue screen in the basement of my parents' old house. Man, that was a long time ago. As I got older, technology became crucial in my life. I believe starting in first grade, I had an adapted computer in the classroom just for me, so I could start completing assignments on it independently. Over the years, the adapted keyboards became smaller and more advanced. I was in all regular classes from kindergarten on, so I did almost everything on a computer. Sometimes, my communication devices served as my computer as well. It just depended on what type of communication device I had. As I got older, the devices advanced, so I could do more things on them. While I was in school, my parents and therapists worked well together to get the equipment I needed. I was fortunate to have the same occupational therapist from early childhood through senior year of high school, and she was into assistive technology, so she really helped us navigate everything. I believe, even though school therapists assisted in finding and training me on devices, most of my communication devices were funded by insurance. The computers and keyboards that were bought by the school district, I believe. I don't remember exactly when I was first introduced to the word prediction software program called CoWriter, but that was an instrumental program for me. Essentially, what it is a software program that comes up with a list of words when you begin typing the word. If the word you want is on the list, you hit the corresponding number next to the word and the word appears. It saved me a lot of time. Again, I had great people in my life who were always trying to make things more efficient for me. I can't remember how we found out about that particular software program, but it made my life a whole lot easier. When I had computer systems at school, my parents always made sure that I had a similar setup at home. It was imperative I could work on things in both places, especially since things took me quite a bit longer to complete. I think programs like Katie Beckett helped with some of the specialized equipment, but a lot of it came out of pocket. My senior year of high school, we purposely had an assistive technology eval done, so I could get a new communication device before I went to college. I started using the CP Center in Green Bay for my tech evals in about 5th grade. Again, I had the best OT. She often came with us to the evals. It really helped because she could add her observations on positioning and use because she saw me use it day to day. I ended up getting a device called the Pathfinder. For my OT and speech sessions my senior year, we spent time learning how to use the device. Before going to college at UW-Whitewater, I had to get a new computer. The adapted keyboards had become better and better. Before going on, I should explain that the adapted keyboards I use have built-in mouse functions. What I mean by that is there are buttons on the keyboard that allow me to move the mouse in every direction and do functions like click, double click, and drag. This is crucial for me. It's the only way I can navigate the computer. One of my first visits to Whitewater, they showed me the Interlakis keyboard, which is an enlarged keyboard that has all of the functions I need. They recommended I get one. I should mention that Whitewater is nationally known for serving students with physical disabilities, so they have a pretty extensive center that has various types of equipment. I bought a computer and an Interlakis, and I had my Pathfinder communication device on a tray attached to my wheelchair. At Whitewater, they gave students who had mobility impairments something called a clicker. It looked like a garage door opener. It had 2 buttons on it. One opened my door to my dorm room, and the other opened doors to various buildings on campus. Another cool thing they had on the dorm room doors that were powered was a switch mounted on the wall in the doorway that would hold the door open. Now, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but as a college kid, especially the first few years, having your dorm room door open was the cool thing to do. It was a social thing. You'd interact with people in the hallway. Another small but helpful piece of technology. Throughout college, I had a couple different wheelchairs and communication devices. It just depended on the time. Technology equipment often goes in cycles. It used to be every 5 years, you'd qualify for a new wheelchair, and every 6 or 7 years you'd be up for a new comm device. I don't know what the general rule is now, but I'll talk more about that in a minute. For a few years in college, I had my textbooks scanned and used a software program called Kurzweil to have the books read aloud to me. Again, the Center for Students with Disabilities had an alternative text department that would scan textbooks and put them on a server that students with disabilities could access. This service helped me a lot. It made it possible for me to access my books independently. And although I don't have an issue with reading, I'm a slower reader because my movements often make it hard to keep track of where I am on the page. So being able to have the books read to me helped a lot. It also helped with note-taking because I could copy and paste right from the books. These services, along with many others, were funded by the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, DVR. 2 years after I graduated from college, I moved into my own apartment in Oshkosh. The complex was originally built for those living with physical impairments, so the general layout is very accessible. It has things such as lower countertops, closets with no doors, and pull-out drawers. That said, I had to make it even more accessible. I was able to buy a power door system using Iris. Similar to what I had in Whitewater, I have a clicker mounted on my wheelchair and another one mounted on my bed table so I can let my morning caregiver in. I purposely saved my 3 most important pieces of equipment for last because I know they'll take up the majority of my time. Those pieces are my power wheelchair, my cell phone, and my computer setup. I'll start with my wheelchair. This chair is just over a year old. I'm obviously off of my parents' insurance now, so it's covered through Medicaid. This is the second chair I've got through Medicaid. Before that, I was really fortunate to have my parents' insurance cover most of my equipment. Even though I've been on straight Medicaid for 10 plus years, I'm still learning the ropes, so to speak. Long story short, we were actually pleasantly surprised when my wheelchair vendor said he thought I'd qualify for a new wheelchair because it had only been just under 7 years, and we had heard somewhere that the rule was generally every 10 years for Medicaid. Evidently, if doctors and the wheelchair tech can write a decent justification, they're more likely to approve them before 10 years. That's something we've learned over the years is that you have to make sure people writing justifications for equipment use the right wording. In fact, my mom and I often type up a sample of what needs to be included in the letter so my doctors use the right wording. That's one of the tricks we've learned. It helps get things approved. Often, I laugh because when I tell people I'm going to get a new chair, they usually say something to the effect of, "Oh, you must be so excited." I just laugh and shake my head because that couldn't be farther from the truth. The idea of getting a new and updated chair may be exciting, but the reality is, getting a new wheelchair is usually pretty hard on the body. The new chair often has better positioning for your body. It takes a while for the body to adjust to the better posture. So, at least for me, getting a new wheelchair always comes with a mixed bag of emotions. Having said that, this chair wasn't too bad to adjust to. A big part of it was that it's because, as I get older, therapists and doctors are less concerned about the quote unquote proper body positioning and more focused on making it as functional as possible. This has been a welcome change with my last 2 wheelchairs. It makes it a lot easier to adjust when they're not trying to make your body sit in a position that isn't comfortable for you. I know that doesn't really have to do with technology, but I wanted to make the point that even with advancements in technology, it's important to do what works for you. This chair is pretty high tech. It has things such as tilt, recline, and power leg rests. All of these features allow me to reposition my body myself. I do these things by using the joystick. The neatest thing it has is the elevate function. This has been new to me. It's so cool to be able to do things like raise myself up to look what's in my freezer and to be able to be at eye level with people who are standing up. It's been awesome. We tried to get it on my previous chair, but Medicaid didn't approve it. For whatever reason, it was approved this time. Again, it's all about the justification with Medicaid. I didn't request it. Thanks to the electronics being back ordered, the company sent one that has headlights, flashers, and turn signals. It's pretty cool. I'm very thankful for my electric wheelchair. Next, I'll talk about my computer setup. I work from home as a communications specialist for Control Wisconsin, which is an organization that supports self-determination and self-directed supports for people with disabilities. I run the Self-Determination Network, which is an online community for people who support self-determination and self-directed supports. Thanks to technology, I'm able to do this independently in my apartment. This is actually the second or third different setup I've had since moving to Oshkosh. After college, I worked with the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation to find employment. My employment journey had lots of twists and turns, but one of the things DVR did was have me do an assistive technology eval. Due to lots of circumstances, it was decided that it was the best option for me to work from home. So, that meant that I needed a computer upgrade. The first eval was done by Employment Resources Incorporated out of Madison. I received things such as 2 monitors, which made it easier for me to switch between screens. A new adapted computer desk was installed. They also set me up with upgraded software and an iPad, a communication app, and mount. I'll go into more detail about the communication device in a little bit, but here I set me up with all of the technology I needed to be able to work. After working for a few years, I realized it was time for my computer to be upgraded. It was over 8 years old and was on its last leg. Long story short, I didn't think my Intel IQ's keyboard would work on the new computers, so I was trying to figure out what to do. I didn't even think of contacting DVR because my case had been closed for a few years. But after doing a little research, I found out I qualified for what's called post-employment services. People can get services to help them maintain their employment. I ended up getting another tech eval done. This one was done by Options for Independent Living out of Green Bay. It's the independent living center in my area. They helped me get a new computer with all the bells and whistles. Fast forward a few years, and I'm on the Independent Living Council of Wisconsin. As a member of the council, we're supposed to make a point to visit our local independent living center. When I visited, I met with the assistive tech guy who had done my assessment just a few years before. He was telling me about some of the latest technology they were seeing being used. He knew what computer system I had because he was the one that ordered it and set it all up for me. He told me about the new eye gaze system that would work on the computer. I had heard of eye gaze before. It has been around for years, but until that point, I have been reluctant to try because I personally thought it just wasn't for me. Eye gaze had been used on primarily communication devices for years, and I felt like I was faster hitting buttons. Again, I'll explain my love-hate relationship with communication devices in just a minute, but for years, I refused trying eye gaze. Well, as he was explaining how it could help me use the computer, I began thinking maybe I should give it a try. He told me about a funding grant opportunity through AT&T, yes, the phone company. I had never heard anything about this opportunity before. It's a grant people with disabilities can apply for that goes toward a piece of technology that would help with communication. The guy set up for a rep from the eye gaze company to come and do a demo for me. She tested me to see if I would benefit from the eye gaze. The way they test people is pretty cool. They have you look at dots on a tablet, and you have to look at each dot until it bursts. You are timed, and it's based on accuracy. I scored something like 96%, so I definitely was a candidate. We filled out the paperwork and it was ordered. A few months later, it arrived and the rep came and installed it. I'm able to type just by moving my eyes. There is an on-screen keyboard that also has word predict. I'm pretty fast typing. In fact, there's no doubt that I'm significantly faster typing using the eye gaze than I am using my adapted keyboard. I can control the mouse with it as well. To think that I probably wouldn't have ever known about the eye gaze or the AT&T grant if I hadn't, by chance, visited my independent living council as part of the role duty on a council is a telling statement. I was a part of a very similar presentation at last year's conference, and both my computer and eye gaze system just had stopped working. I was waiting for a TEEP grant to be approved for a new eye gaze system, and I was just starting the process of reopening a case with DVR so I could get a new assistive technology evaluation for a new computer. It took quite a while, but the eval happened and I finally got all of my new equipment in April. That's one thing I'll say. Assistive technology is awesome, but if you want any help funding equipment, the number of hoops you have to go through and the time it takes is pretty unbelievable. My computer is basically my whole life. I didn't even go into how much the internet has opened up my world. I could spend many hours just talking about that. From emailing, to online shopping, to banking and paying bills, to connecting with people, the list is truly endless. Having my disability affect my speech adds another whole layer to how crucial the internet is for me. In almost every situation where I would need someone else to make a phone call for me, I'm able to find a way to communicate with who I need to over the internet. Everything from portals for personal health care needs, to online chatting with a streaming service, to emailing a question to a company, to ordering delivery for dinner. I literally would not be able to do half of the things I do without the internet. Not to mention, working and participating in hundreds of meetings using video conferencing programs. For a lot of people with similar disabilities, the pandemic made the world realize that a lot of things are possible with technology. Now on to the last thing I'll talk about. My cell phone. I got my first cell phone my second year of college. It was a little Nokia. I remember my parents and I were trying to find a cell phone that wasn't a flip phone. At that time, everyone had flip phones, but because of my limited motor ability, I couldn't use a flip phone. I got a cell phone more because it was a cool thing to have at the time. It was mounted on a tray I had my communication device on. I rarely used it except occasionally to call my friends. We had it set up where if I call certain people at certain times, they knew it meant that class got out early and I needed them to call the van service to come get me. Obviously, I couldn't verbally tell them that, but they knew my schedule and where I was. It sounds funny now, but we didn't realize I could text until I had my first cell phone for quite a while. I vividly remember that I was in an art history class, and I knew my sister had a doctor appointment about her injured knee. Granted, I should have been paying attention in class, but being the caring sister I am, I tried sending a text. I have no idea what made me think of trying that, but sending that simple text literally changed my life. Texting wasn't nearly as prevalent back then, but that was the start of realizing how useful cell phones would be to me, even though I can't verbally use the phone. When touchscreen phones became a thing, because of my movements and limited dexterity, nobody thought I would be able to ever use them. Again, it was a couple years after they became popular before I even tried it. At the time, my mom had an iPhone. One day, I happened to try it, and lo and behold, I could navigate it pretty well thanks to my double-jointed thumb. Again, trial and error is a huge part of technology. My first couple touchscreen phones were Android. I eventually moved to Apple. After college, I moved back with my parents for a while until we figured out the apartment and care situation. During that time, my dad came up with a way to mount my cell phone to my wheelchair by my joystick. The original mount he invented was made out of an old footplate that was on a manual wheelchair I had. Again, having my phone on my chair was life-changing. It's another unconventional hack we found. Texting became more popular as the years went on. I'm extremely thankful for this. It's now my main means of communication with my family and friends. I send texts to everyone. I text my caregivers when they don't show. I text family and friends every single day. Texting has truly opened up so many doors for me. I wouldn't be able to live independently if I couldn't text. There are several different apps I use to help me do different things. First, let's start with the Ring doorbell. A few years after moving in my apartment, my parents got me a Ring doorbell. Looking back, we should have bought one sooner. Living alone and having significant physical limitations puts me in a vulnerable situation. Being nonverbal adds another layer to it. Before getting the video doorbell, I had no choice but to open the door to anyone. I have no way of seeing who was at my door. With the video doorbell, when it rings, I get a notification on my phone and can open the app to see who is there before pressing the button to open the door. It's so much safer for me. Another app I use to do things independently is the Amazon Echo app. I have an Echo in my apartment. Again, I'm not able to verbally speak to it, but I can program my communication app to tell or ask it things. I'm also able to use the actual app to do things like play music or turn on lights. For a person who is considered nonverbal, it often sounds kind of funny to tell people that I have a voice-activated device, but it's pretty cool that I can do so much using it. As minor as this sounds, the Roku app has also enabled me to be more independent. For those who don't know, the Roku is basically internet TV. It allows people to watch streaming services such as Netflix and Hulu on your TVS. Again, because of my movements and limited dexterity, using TV remotes can be challenging. The Roku app has a remote feature. I can control my TVS using my phone. It may seem minor to most people, but it's another thing I'm able to do independently thanks to technology. Okay, I've kept hinting I'd go into more about communication devices. Long story short, all of my life, I've had people trying to tell me that I should use communication devices, but my biggest problem was positioning of them. I didn't like having something in front of me all the time. So, to be completely honest, I didn't use them unless I absolutely had to. I obviously used it in classes, but otherwise, I rarely used it because it got in the way. When I had a big tray on or mounted directly in front of me, I couldn't pull up to any tables or fit under desks. It got in the way, so around family and friends, I never used it. During my tech eval in 2013, they hooked me up with an iPad, a communication app called ProLocor 2 Go, and a mount for my wheelchair. The mount wasn't as bulky and heavy as the trays and other mounts I had in the past, but it still got in the way and wasn't ideal. Again, I used it only when I absolutely had to. I should explain that when I'm around family and friends, I didn't really need a device. They understand my gestures and limited speech pretty well. I used the iPad for things like interviews and presentations. One day, about 4 years ago, I was just playing around on my iPhone looking through the App Store just for fun, and I accidentally went to the tab where it shows the apps that you had purchased. The communication app I used on my iPad, ProLocor 2 Go, showed up on the page. It had been already downloaded on the iPad, so it had that little cloud icon by it. Not thinking it'd work because it was already on my iPad, just for the heck of it, I tried downloading it on my phone. It worked. I couldn't believe it. I now had a communication app on my phone where I could easily access it. I was excited to say the least. I'm able to talk to people all the time now. It's amazing. I'm not sure why the idea was missed when I had the two assistive technology avals when they knew I used an iPhone, but I'm certainly glad I figured it out. Assistive technology professionals are great, but the truth is, a lot of this stuff comes with experience. Unless you're in the situation, you don't know what works best for you. With my most recent technology eval, I got another communication app called ProLocor for Text. It's specifically meant for people who prefer to type out everything as opposed to using sequences and pre-programmed phrases to communicate, which is definitely me. I just use ProLocor 2 Go for presentations like this now. I'll stop there. I've touched on almost all the technology I use. I've said it a million times, but I'll say it again. I would not be able to do the things I do without the technology I have. I guess I was born in the right era. The Americans with Disabilities Act was signed when I was just 5 years old, and there seems to have been a technology explosion in the last 30 years. As self-advocates with disabilities, we still have work to do with accessibility of lots of things, and we need to continue to fight for a better overall long-term care system. But technology has been an enormous benefit to successful lives for so many people like myself. What's the next big advancement in technology? Personally, I'm keeping my eye on accessible self-driving vehicles. I'm not sure if it'll be in my lifetime, but someday they'll be readily available. I can even fathom how awesome it'd be to be able to drive. I'm looking forward to seeing what the big technological thing will be.